The night was cold, and the rain fell like sharp needles from the dark sky. Neon lights flickered over dirty streets, and most people walked fast, keeping their heads low. No one wanted trouble. No one wanted to see what was hidden in the shadows. But one man noticed. His name was Jonas. He was a human, a mechanic working at the starport. He didn't earn much, but he had a kind heart. That night, he was walking home from a long shift when he heard something. A soft sound, not a machine. Not a voice. It was a cry. He stopped and listened. Again, the same sound. A quiet, weak sob. He looked around. Then he saw her. She was small, very small. A little alien girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Her skin was pale blue, glowing faintly in the rain. She had long dark hair that was soaked and dirty. Her clothes were torn and thin. She sat in a corner of a dark alley, hugging her knees, her face hidden. She was shivering. Jonas slowly walked toward her. He spoke gently. "Hey, are you okay?" She flinched and looked up. Her eyes were big and full of fear. She didn't answer. She didn't seem to understand his words. But her face, her eyes, they told the truth. She was scared, alone, cold. People passed by, some glanced at them, but no one stopped. Jonas kneeled down. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." He took off his jacket and gently placed it around her tiny shoulders. She looked surprised, like no one had ever given her anything before. "Warm?" He asked. She didn't speak, but she nodded slowly. He smiled. "Good." He opened his small bag. There was half a sandwich from lunch. He unwrapped it and held it out. "Hungry?" She stared at the food, then took it carefully. She ate fast, like someone who hadn't had a meal in days. Jonas sat beside her. The rain kept falling, but he didn't move. He watched over her silently. He didn't ask where her parents were. He didn't ask why she was alone. He just waited. After a few minutes, she leaned a little closer to him. The jacket was big, but she held it tightly. Jonas looked around. "I can't leave you here," he whispered. "But I can't take you home either, not without trouble." This planet had rules. Strict ones. Helping a lost alien child without permission could lead to questions, arrests, even punishment. But Jonas didn't care. He stood up. "Come," he said, and held out his hand. She hesitated, then placed her small, cold hand in his. He led her to a nearby shelter. The building was old, but the people there were kind. He spoke to the worker behind the desk, a tired-looking alien woman with gray horns. "I found her in the alley," Jonas said. "She needs help." The worker looked at the girl and sighed. "Another abandoned one. Will she be safe here?" The woman nodded. For now. Jonas crouched in front of the girl. She looked up at him, clutching his jacket. Smiled gently. "You can keep it, okay?" She looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly she leaned forward and hugged him. Jonas froze. Then he hugged her back. "You'll be okay," he whispered. "I promise." He stood and gave one last look before walking away. His jacket was gone, but his heart felt strangely full. 3 days later, Jonas sat in his small apartment, sipping cheap tea. He couldn't stop thinking about her. That little girl, her eyes, her silence, her hug. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. He stood up slowly and walked over. When he opened the door, he was not ready for what he saw. It was her. She stood there, wearing the same jacket. But this time, she wasn't alone. A tall alien woman stood behind her. She had the same pale blue skin and glowing eyes, but older, wiser and fierce. The little girl smiled and pointed at Jonas. The woman stepped forward. "You," she said softly, her voice shaking. "You helped my daughter," Jonas blinked. She found you?" The woman nodded. Her eyes filled with tears. "You didn't just give her your jacket," she said. "You gave her hope." She stepped closer. "And now, I need your help again." Jonas froze. The little girl was standing in front of him, wearing his jacket like it was the most precious thing in the galaxy. But it was the woman behind her that caught his breath. She was tall, elegant, and clearly from the same alien race as the girl. Her glowing eyes locked on Jonas, and for a moment, no one spoke. Then the woman stepped forward and bowed. Not a small thank you nod, a deep, respectful bow. Jonas blinked. What's happening?" The little girl reached out and grabbed his hand. She pulled it to her cheek and closed her eyes. That's when the woman looked up, and Jonas saw the tears in her eyes. "You saved my child," she said in broken English. "No one else did." Jonas tried to speak but couldn't find the words. Woman slowly walked into the room as if waiting to be stopped, but Jonas stepped aside. The girl let go of his hand and walked in with her mother, still holding the jacket tight. "I am Lyrea," the woman said. "This is my daughter, Tyli." Jonas nodded slowly. "I'm Jonas." Lyrea gave a small smile. "She told me about you. Every night." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "She didn't say a word to me." Lyrea placed her hand over her heart. "Our people speak with silence too." Jonas offered them seats. He made tea, though he wasn't sure if they even drank tea, and they all sat together in the small, dimly lit kitchen. The girl, Telly, sipped the hot drink like it was something magical. Lyrea, however, didn't touch hers. She kept her eyes on Jonas. "You didn't ask who she was," Lyrea said quietly, "or why she was alone." "I didn't care," Jonas replied. "She was freezing, hungry, and scared. That was enough." Lyrea looked down. "You have no idea what danger you stepped into." Jonas tilted his head. "Danger?" Lyrea took a deep breath. "We were running, hiding. Her father, he's not a kind man. He's powerful, rich, and cruel." She pulled back her sleeve, revealing a thin silver band around her wrist burned into the skin. "A slave mark," she whispered. "He bought me, then kept me. When I escaped, I took Tali and disappeared." Jonas's eyes darkened. "So, he's looking for you?" Lyrea nodded. "And now he knows someone helped her." Jonas sat back, thinking. "I didn't give him your name." Lyrea leaned forward. "He doesn't need names, he owns eyes. Cameras, people." The silence grew heavy. Then Lyrea looked up again. "But I didn't come here to bring danger." She stood up, walked to Jonas, and knelt. Jonas almost jumped. "Hey, what are you doing?" Lyrea looked up at him with calm, glowing eyes. "I am repaying a life debt. In our culture, that means something." Jonas backed away, hands raised. "Look, I didn't help her for some reward. I just did what anyone should have done." "No," she whispered. "Not anyone, only you." Tali walked up and gently took Jonas's hand again. She looked up, her little voice finally speaking a single word. "Home." Jonas's throat tightened. Lyrea stood. "She thinks you're safe, and now she wants to stay." Jonas looked between the two of them, one small and full of hope, the other tall and full of secrets. And for the first time, he realized his life had just changed. He was no longer just a mechanic, no longer just a kind stranger. He was now part of something deeper, but he didn't know yet how deep the roots of this new bond truly went. Because far away, watching from a dark corner of the city, someone else had seen Lyrea enter his home, and that someone whispered into a device. "Target found. Prepare to move." Jonas was fixing a small fusion valve in his workshop the next evening when he heard a sound behind him. Not a knock, not a voice, a soft breath. He turned, and there she was again. Tali, the little alien girl, stood silently at the doorway. She wore his old jacket like a shield, and her glowing eyes blinked slowly. She didn't speak, but Jonas's heart dropped, because this time, she wasn't smiling. He dropped his tools and walked over quickly. "Tali, are you all right?" "Where's your mother?" She pointed behind her. Jonas looked and saw Lyrea walking toward the workshop with a bag of food. She looked tired, pale, eyes darting around nervously. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "We had to move again," she whispered. "Why?" Jonas asked. "What happened?" "Someone saw us," she said. "We were followed," Jonas frowned. "Here? In this district?" Larea nodded. "Your kindness has made us a target." Jonas didn't speak for a moment. Then he locked the workshop door behind them. They shared a quiet dinner. Larea had brought street food, nothing fancy, but it was warm. Talai stayed, close to Jonas, sitting beside him like a shadow. She didn't touch her food until Jonas did. Then after the meal, Larea opened her bag and placed something on the table. A small square metal device, burnt and broken. Jonas picked it up. "What's this?" "Tracker," she whispered. "They were near our hiding place. I destroyed it. But it means they're closing in." Jonas felt a strange fire rise inside him. He looked at Talai. She was picking at her food with tiny fingers, unaware of the danger. He clenched his fist. "They're not taking her. Or you." Larea looked at him carefully. "Why do you care, human?" Jonas looked at her, then at Tele. "Because someone has to, but unknown to them." Across the street, hidden in the shadows of a rusted cargo container, an alien man was watching. He had sharp yellow eyes and wore a black coat with red embroidery, a mark of House Drezek, the noble clan that once owned Larea. He pressed his finger to a small device. "She's with the human again," he whispered. "I have visual." A voice replied coldly in his earpiece. "Observe only. Do not engage. We need confirmation of the child." The man's eyes narrowed. "He's protective. He may fight," the voice replied. "Then let him. He'll learn humans bleed the same as us." Later that night, Jonas couldn't sleep. He sat in a chair beside the small bed where Tele was curled up, fast asleep. Larea was on the other side of the room, resting with her eyes half open. "Do you think he'll come?" Jonas asked softly. Larea nodded. "Not if, when," Jonas sighed. "Then we should move again. I know a friend, a freighter pilot. He owes me." She looked at him. "You're risking everything." "I already did when I gave her my jacket," Jonas said. "Guess it's too late to stop now." Suddenly a window cracked. Jonas jumped up. Talai sat up fast, startled. Larea stood like a shadow, her hands glowing faintly with energy. Jonas grabbed a wrench, his only weapon. He looked through the window and saw a shadow dart past. He ran to the door and swung it open. No one. Silence. But then, a voice behind him. "You're protecting my property, human." Jonas turned slowly. The man with yellow eyes stood there, now inside the room. How had he gotten in? Larea stood between him and Talai. "You don't have a claim on us anymore." The man grinned. "Oh, I don't want you back. I want the child." Jonas stepped forward, over my dead body. The man's smile grew wider. "That can be arranged." Suddenly, a flash of light. Larea raised her hand and fired a blast of energy at him. The man flew back, crashing through the door. Jonas stared. "You're a combat mage?" Larea nodded slowly. "I used to be more than just a slave." Tele ran into Jonas's arms, trembling. He held her tight. Larea looked at them and said, "We have to go, now." Jonas grabbed his jacket, scooped up Talai, and ran out with Larea into the rain. Behind them, the noble's agent rose from the ground, face burned and eyes full of fury. "You've made a mistake, human," he growled, "and I don't forget mistakes." The old cargo train rattled through the stormy night. Inside one of its empty cars, Jonas sat against a metal wall, holding little Tally close. She was fast asleep again, her head resting on his chest, arms around his neck. She trusted him now completely. Larea sat across from him, eyes scanning the darkness outside through a small slit in the metal. Neither of them had spoken since they escaped, but Jonas couldn't hold it anymore. He looked at Larea. "You didn't tell me you had powers." Larea didn't answer. Her fingers were glowing faintly blue light under pale skin. Back there, Jonas continued, you knocked that guy across the room like he was nothing. Lirea turned to him slowly. Her voice was soft. Because I was trained to, Jonas frowned. Trained by who? She hesitated. Then finally, she whispered, by the Imperial Guard. Jonas blinked. Wait, you were a soldier? She nodded. A battle mage. One of the best. He stared at her. But you were a slave? She looked down at the floor. Yes, because even warriors can be captured. Jonas felt a chill. He had thought she was just a mother trying to survive. But now he was looking at a former elite fighter, someone who had seen war, death, and betrayal. And then she said the words that shook him even deeper. I wasn't just a slave. I was the bodyguard to the Baron's wife, Talai's real mother. Jonas sat still. His arms instinctively held Talai tighter. What are you saying? Lirea looked at him. The Baron's wife was kind to me. She saved me from the prison mines and gave me purpose. When she died suddenly, I was blamed. Jonas's voice was low. Let me guess, killed by the Baron? Lirea nodded. Poisoned, quietly, no one could prove it. She looked at Talai. She was just a baby. The Baron had many children, but only one born from his first wife, the legal heir. That's Talai, Jonas whispered. So, he wants her back not because he loves her, but because she's the only one who can inherit his empire. Lirea finished. Jonas felt like the floor dropped under him. He wasn't just hiding a scared child anymore. He was holding the key to power. A child hunted not just by a cruel father, but by an entire empire of lies. Lirea stood and walked to the back of the train car. She pulled down the collar of her tunic and turned around. Jonas saw it, a deep scar, shaped like an ancient symbol. What is that? He asked. It's called the Mark of Silence, she said. They give it to those who know too much and are meant to die quietly. Why didn't they kill you? She turned to him with fire in her eyes. Because I didn't. Let them. She walked back and sat beside him. For a moment, she looked human. Tired, sad, brave. I don't want power, she said. I just want Talai to live free, without chains, without being used like a tool. Jonas looked at the girl sleeping in his arms. She deserves that. Then he looked at Lirea. So what now? She took a deep breath. We run, hide, until we find someone who can protect her, really protect her. Jonas asked quietly, not me? Lirea met his eyes. You've already risked more than you should. You have no idea how far they'll go to take her back. Jonas thought for a long time. Then he said, you're wrong. Lirea blinked. What? Jonas stood up, still holding Talai. I do know what I'm risking. I saw it the moment she hugged me back in that alley. And I'll keep risking it until she's safe. Lirea looked at him, eyes wide. Then something moved outside the window. Jonas's heart jumped. Lirea's hands lit up instantly. A shadow was passing between the train cars, slow, watching. Then another dot, and another. Lirea whispered, they found us again. Jonas clenched his jaw. Then let them come. He put Talai down gently and picked up a metal pipe from the floor. Lirea stood beside him, her hands glowing brighter than ever. Together, they waited for the fight. And outside, the train howled through the storm as figures climbed aboard. The cargo train screamed through the canyon as wind howled outside. Inside, Jonas and Lirea stood ready. Jonas gripped a metal pipe tightly in his hand. It shook a little, but not from fear. From focus. Lirea's hands glowed with blue fire. Humming with hidden power, they could both feel it. They were not alone. Outside the train car, boots hit the metal roof, clank, 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 moving closer. Then the side door of the train slid open halfway. An armed alien bounty hunter peeked in, face half covered, red visor glowing. Jonas didn't wait. He charged. The bounty hunter raised his blaster too slow. Jonas swung the pipe crack and knocked the weapon flying. Larea jumped in, sending a blast of energy that pushed the man clear off the train. He vanished into the dark, but there were more. 3 shadows dropped into the car from the roof, silent, fast, deadly. Larea moved like a storm, her hands blazing with energy. 2 attackers came at her, and she met them head-on, spinning and striking with precise, graceful movements. Jonas held his ground near Tylee, swinging at anyone who got too close. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained for battle. But he fought like someone who had something to protect. Tylee curled up in the corner behind him, hands over her ears. One attacker rushed toward Jonas with a blade. Jonas blocked it with his. Arm pain exploded through him, but he didn't stop. He headbutted the alien hard, knocking him back. But then a blaster fired. Everything slowed. Jonas turned in time to see a 4th bounty hunter in the doorway. The blaster glowed red. A shot was already flying through the air aimed at Tylee. Jonas didn't think. He moved. In front of her. The blast hit him square in the chest. He fell hard, back slamming into the floor. Larea screamed, her power erupting like a lightning storm. She blasted all remaining enemies from the train, their bodies thrown far into the darkness. Silence. Smoke. Then Jonas. Larea dropped to her knees beside him. Blood was soaking his shirt. His breath was shallow. His face was pale, but he was alive. He coughed, eyes blinking. "Is she okay?" Larea nodded quickly. You jumped in front of a blaster." He gave a faint smile. "Didn't want her to get hurt." Tylee crawled over, crying silently, and placed her small hand on his chest. "Stay," she whispered. Larea looked at Jonas's wound. The shot had burned deep, but it had missed the heart. Barely. She tore a piece of her cloak and pressed it to his chest. "We need to stop the bleeding. Now." Jonas's eyes fluttered. "Guess I'm not walking after this." "We'll carry you," she said firmly. "But they'll follow." He muttered. Larea looked at him, her voice fierce. "Then let them." Hours later, the sun was rising over the wastelands. A lone speeder moved quietly across the sand. In the back sat Jonas, half-conscious, his head resting on Larea's shoulder. Tylee held his hand tightly. Larea drove with calm, steady hands. But her mind was storming. She had seen soldiers die in battle. She had seen nobles lie, cheat, and murder. But never in all her life had she seen someone do what Jonas had done. Take a blaster for a child that wasn't even his. And in that moment, she knew something had changed in her heart, not just for her daughter, but for him. Later that night, they found a cave deep in the cliffs. Larea cleaned Jonas's wound with soft cloth and a bottle of healing agent. Her hands trembled. Tylee watched quietly, holding his other hand like a lifeline. "Why?" Larea whispered. "Why would you do that for us?" Jonas opened one eye. "Because she called me home." Larea's eyes filled with tears. She leaned closer. "You're not just helping us," she whispered. "You're becoming one of us." Jonas gave a weak smile. "Then, let's keep running, together." And in the stillness of that hidden cave, a new family began to take shape, but far away, deep inside a fortress of glass and steel. The Baron received a message. The girl lives. The human protects her. They're heading east. The Baron stood up, cold and furious. "Then burn everything in their path," he said. The fire crackled softly inside the cave. Outside, cold winds howled over the rocks, but inside, it was warm, safe, almost peaceful. Jonas lay wrapped in a blanket, his wound freshly cleaned. The pain was sharp, but he didn't complain. Tylee sat curled up beside him, fast asleep, holding his hand as if letting go would make him vanish. Larea sat across the fire, staring into the flames. She hadn't said much since they escaped. Not a word while she bandaged his chest. Not a word while she built the fire and cooked food. But now, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why do you stay?" Jonas blinked. He was tired, but not too tired to answer. I told you before, she needed help. Larea shook her head. That was days ago, before the blaster, before the bounty hunters, before you almost died. Jonas looked at her quietly. She continued, you could have left. Any moment. You're not her blood, you're not bound to us, and yet, you took a shot for her. Jonas looked down at the little girl sleeping beside him. She called me home, he said softly. I guess that meant something to me. Larea watched him carefully, her glowing eyes soft. Then she said, she doesn't sleep unless she's near you. Jonas gave a small smile. She trusts me. Larea's voice lowered. So do I. The fire cracked again, filling the silence. Then, after a long pause, Larea stood. She walked over to Jonas, knelt beside him, and reached into her pocket. She pulled out a small charm silver, round, glowing faintly with blue energy. She placed it gently in his hand. He looked at it, confused. What is this? A family token, she said. We pass it to those we choose to protect our bloodline. Jonas's eyes widened. I'm not family. Larea's voice broke slightly. But you act like one. He looked at her, eyes soft with confusion, pain, and something else. He didn't fully understand. Then she asked the question, the one that left him frozen. Jonas, would you become her real father? He couldn't speak. His mind stopped. The words hung in the air, powerful and raw. Larea looked down, almost afraid of his answer. I'm not asking for protection, she added quietly. You've already given that. I'm asking for something deeper. Jonas sat up slowly, ignoring the pain in his ribs. He looked at her, really looked at her, at the strong but tired woman who had carried a child, escaped chains, fought off killers, and still stood tall. He thought about Talai's hand. In his her quiet voice whispering, home. And then, he answered, I don't know how to be a father, he said honestly. But I can try. Larea smiled softly. Trying is enough. She leaned forward, pressed her forehead gently to his, a gesture of deep trust in her culture. Then she whispered, she already sees you that way. Jonas closed his eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of that truth sink into his soul. But outside, in the cold dark night, a drone passed by the cliff silent. Unseen. It scanned the cave's heat signature and flew off. Far away, inside a command center glowing with red lights, a voice said, we have them. And the Baron smiled. The cave was quiet. Tali still slept, safely tucked beside Jonas, while Larea packed their few belongings. She moved calmly, but inside her heart was racing. She could feel it. Something was coming, and she was right. At sunrise, the cliff shook with the roar of engines. A sleek black dropship descended like a shadow, kicking up sand as it landed just outside the cave. 6 armored soldiers stepped out, followed by a tall figure wrapped in dark silk robes, the Baron. His cold, silver eyes stared at the cave entrance as he gave a cruel smile. Burn it down, he said. Inside the cave. Anas woke to the sound of boots hitting the ground outside. He sat up, wincing from his wound. Larea stood at the entrance, her body glowing softly with power. They've found us, she said quietly. Jonas stood, grabbing the metal rod again. Then let's make them regret it. Larea looked at him, eyes full of fire. We finish this together. The attack was fast. Flashes of light lit up the cave walls. Larea moved like a storm, blades of glowing energy slicing through the soldiers. Jonas, despite his injury, fought beside her, covering her blind spots, shielding Talai whenever danger came close. Then the Baron stepped in. He was powerful, trained in dark combat arts, his hands glowing with venomous red light. Larea clashed with him in the center of the cave, light against darkness, past against present. You betrayed me, he hissed. You betrayed your child. She spat back. Their battle was fierce. Jonas, bleeding and exhausted, joined the fight. blocking one of the Baron's strikes meant for Lirea. The Baron sneered. "Still playing family human," Jonas grinned weakly. "No, I'm living it." Suddenly, Tali screamed. She had woken and saw the Baron raise a hand toward Jonas. A bolt of red fire shot forward, and Jonas, without thinking, turned to shield. Tali again, but this time Lirea, stepped in the way. The blast hit her square in the chest. She fell. Jonas caught her in his arms. "No, no, no, stay with me," he shouted. Lirea coughed, her voice faint. "Protect her." "Always." Tali crawled to her, sobbing, but Lirea smiled, even in pain. She touched Tali's face. "She's strong, just like you." Then, with one last breath, Lirea's glowing eyes dimmed. She was gone. Jonas stood slowly, face pale, body shaking, but his hands gripped the metal rod tighter. He turned toward the Baron, and something changed. He didn't attack with fury. He moved with purpose. Each strike was clean, controlled, silent, just like Lirea used to fight. The Baron faltered. Then Jonas struck a final blow, knocking him flat. Jonas didn't kill him. He simply said, "You don't deserve her. You never did," and walked away, carrying Tali in one arm, Lirea's charm in the other. Weeks later, a small farm on the edge of a peaceful moon. Tali sat in the garden, planting blue flowers with small hands. Jonas watched her from the porch. He still carried the scar across his chest, but he also carried something more now. Call on purpose. A home, a reason to keep going. Tali stood and walked up to him. She held out a flower. He knelt down to her level. She placed it behind his ear, giggled, and whispered one word for the first time: "Father." Jonas didn't speak. His eyes filled with tears. He picked her up and held her close, not because he had to, but because now he was home too.